Hi, welcome to Against the Grain. As we strive to live for Jesus, that means living differently than the people around us. It means living different than the culture around us. And probably nowhere is this harder, and nowhere is this more important than in parenting. And parenting is hard enough as it is. But then as we start to parent our kids, to live for Jesus, it really makes it a lot harder. And we have to go against the grain in so many different ways. But even harder than that is when we talk about parenting teenagers. And I think everybody kind of cringes when we talk about parenting teenagers and what that looks like to really be intentional with our teens, to lead them to live for Jesus. And so that's what we're going to talk about today, is that important period of time where culture is just pressing in on them. And then how do we lead teens? So whether you're a parent or whether you're a grandparent or whether you are a teenager, a student, or maybe you're a leader that's pouring into other teens, I think it's going to be a great conversation today as we lean into that. In this season, it's so easy to pull back in a way, but we want to be pressing into them. And I'm really excited about talking about this today because we've got with us today Jermaine Arfel, our student minister, and then Lauren Urbe. No, I keep doing it. Lauren Adams now, but your email still says Urbe, who's our associate student minister for girls. So welcome, y'all.
Yeah. Glad to be here.
So because y'all are student ministers, we got to do something fun to kind of get us going and start off. So we toyed around with a few ideas. Jermaine was kind of ooked out about the fruit. what fruit would you live in? So let's just do two truths and a lie.
Okay. All right. Starting with
you
me.
Go for it. Yep. See if we
Two
can figure it out.
truths and a lie. All right. So one, the scar that I have on my wrist, it's about 6 inches long. It's from fighting a tiger when I was 12, actually turning 13. It's rite of passage being from Ghana, tribal thing that my parents have going on. And then another one, let's say I know Deion Sanders personally. And another one is I have an incredible fear of heights, but I want to go skydiving one day.
Nice. You probably already know the answer, don't you?
Yeah, you have to guess.
Okay. All right. I'm going to guess number one. That can't be true.
I think that's pretty obvious. Yeah. Okay. No, I did not get a scar from fighting a tiger. So I actually got my wife with that. So
yeah, I can see the fear of heights thing, and I can see you pressing through it and skydiving anyway. But the tiger thing, that was a little much. All right, Lauren, how about you?
My birthday is the same numbers as my height. I did dance for 5 years, and I spent part of my summer in Spain.
Okay, I know the Spain one is true. 5 years of dance.
Yeah.
Never danced.
It was very short.
Well done.
I didn't,
2 for 2.
I
Well
didn't
done.
dance for very
Well
long.
done.
I don't know if that's because I just guessed well or if I know y'all that well.
I think you
guess.
know us that
Probably
well.
so.
Yeah.
Probably so. All right, but yours had an element of truth because you are from Ghana.
My parents are from Ghana.
So
yes.
it could have been. Okay.
Yeah.
I did do dance, just not for 5 years.
Not for 5 years. Okay. Excellent. So so what is y'all's favorite thing about being a youth minister?
Man, I don't. So I'm 43, and I still feel like I'm still like a teenager. Like, look how I'm dressed. I feel like I'm blessed to be able to just
To never grow up.
Yeah, to never grow up and have an excuse for it. So I just love interacting with them and enjoying, being in their world and just hanging out with them. I think that's my most favorite part, is just being in their world. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's been sweet being on the other side. Like, I think being cared for well in the church growing up, in those middle school and high school years, and kind of, like I said, having people that really poured into me, I would get excited when those people came to my games or when they would come to things. And so to be on the flip side and have students call me when they want to tell me good news or send me a text of like, I just wanted to keep you in the loop on this. Like, it feels surreal sometimes that now I'm on the flip side of that. And to know that I have a space to care for students that some come from great homes and some it's harder for them.
Yeah.
And so to be a space for them to just be like, hey, I need advice, or hey, I just want to celebrate this with you. I'm like, you want to call me to tell me this?
Yeah.
Let's celebrate. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's such a privilege that like I'm just so beyond undeserving to have. But looking back, I'm like, I remember how well I was cared for, and so it's such an encouragement that I'm like, wow, I get to do this for someone else, and I know the long-term effect that it had.
What a beautiful picture too of they poured into
Yeah.
you. Now you're pouring into hundreds of girls, and just how that spreads,
Yeah.
and what an impact they've made by making an impact on you.
Yeah, I
That's
think
really cool.
something that you said that really got me excited too is just us being able, privileged, like you said, to play a part in life change,
Yeah.
like life change that matters.
Yeah.
You know, I know we've had some baptisms that have happened over the last several Wednesday nights, and most of them have been students whose parents aren't necessarily connected to the church, and coming into the church just in and of itself for a parent was a really big deal. But then afterwards, we usually, we do praise and worship after baptism, and the kids are just going crazy. But to see parents who have never really stepped foot in our church, maybe not even a church in general in a long time, getting in there and dancing and praising and turning around and jumping, and in tears of joy, that's, man, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so what are some of the other things that y'all are seeing among students? It's just encouraging, or things that you're seeing among this generation right now?
I was been telling Lauren, I feel like this generation, maybe post-COVID, I guess if you want to call it that, they seem to have a true, genuine hunger and thirst for the word.
Yeah.
And not only that, they don't just want to fill their minds up with it. They want to put it into action and engage culture with, what they're doing. And it's so refreshing to know that, hey, we came here to get into the word and hear from God, and then also teach or receive the teaching from God, and then also go out and make an impact for his kingdom. It's been really cool.
Yeah, they don't like the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would say pretty much the same thing. I think they're just hungry for depth, and they just want, I think, something that has substantial meaning to it. I think they're inundated with surface level when you have social media, and I think even just this culture. And so I think that they crave depth, and I think that you see that translate in their walk with the Lord. And so I think it's cool to watch them do it themselves. There's a group of Grapevine girls that meets on Tuesday mornings, and to see them start to kind of expand their thoughts and their knowledge of who God is, and to gain that confidence is cool. And then on top of that, like you have those students that are leading other Bible studies as well. And so, they're constantly talking about, oh yeah, we went to Bongiorno and we had a Bible study, or we did this, or we did that. And so to see them crave it, and then to just feast on God's word, but not to just sit in it, but to go do something with it. I think they're tired of just sitting there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so what are some of the, talked about what are the great things that are happening? What are some of the challenges? Like, what are the big, for teens today, what are some of those big challenges that they're running up against that you see over and over again?
I think the pressure to succeed, the pressure to maintain relationships, and maybe if you want to throw in there just understanding identity. I know it's a big buzzword, but probably those three things, I think, a real big challenge I see with teenagers. And it's a reoccurring thing, year after year. It seems like students that we are interacting with, building relationships with, and trying to raise them up to live for Jesus. Those are some very common struggles that can be very difficult as they're growing up.
Yeah. And how would you, okay, so you're not quite as old as me, but you're kind of, you've been, you grew up in a different era for sure. So how would you think those challenges are different from like when you grew up?
That's a good question. I don't know if there's much of a difference, other than there's social media now.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, there was no social media, and thank God, because my high school years would be all over everywhere, and I don't want that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest challenge. And we've talked about this before. There's no discipleship plan that was before my generation or your generation that helps parents know how to navigate, through how to handle social media, when you should get phones, when you shouldn't,
Right.
and all and those things. And I think too, we're in a world that it went through COVID, and a lot of things happened to students mentally, being closed off from the world and being isolated. There's some of those effects from COVID is still lingering, I think. Yeah. So COVID and then social media.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, for sure. I couldn't imagine every mistake I've ever made being saved out there for the world to see. Knowing exactly what things I was not invited to, and then just the constant trying to keep up with all this trend and that and everything else.
I would feel so fatigued trying to keep up with all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, and talk about trying to find your identity and figure out who am I and what that looks like. I don't know, am I this guy? Am I this guy? Am I this guy? What is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So in some ways, I think that nothing has really changed, but in some ways, a lot has changed.
Just amplified.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Any other challenges, Lauren, that you've seen that I think would be really helpful? to see?
I think opposite from you guys, I'm not calling you old. I did grow
It's
up
okay.
in this
Well, it's fine.
generation.
We're old, and I'm
okay
older.
being
Even
old.
older, but yeah.
I love it. I love being 43.
I did grow up in this generation, and I do think I think that they still have it harder in high school than I did. I think a lot of the struggles and issues are still the same. There's some different ones that are a little bit that weren't as present for me, at least. But I think perfectionism and kind of what you said about the pressure, like just this need to be perfect. And I think the culture in which we live in, I think in just this even part of being in Dallas, like in the area, it's a high pressure culture. And so not only is there the pressure from school, but then you look on Instagram and they're not only following their friends, like their close friends, but they're following acquaintances, people that they probably wouldn't even say they're friends with, influencers. And so you're getting all of this mass information of what you're supposed to look like, how you're supposed to sound, how you're supposed to dress, what you're supposed to have, what your close friends that actually probably aren't thriving online, they're thriving.
Right.
The ones that you're not friends with, you don't know anything about, they're thriving. I mean, just like all of these pieces.
You only see the best pieces of somebody's life, and you assume that's their whole life.
Yeah, but I think, even what it's trickled into is even their quiet times. I'm like, you can actually just sit with God in your Bible, and that's it. Like, you don't have to have 15 commentaries and these new highlighters and all these journals. Like, God's word is sufficient for that, And so I think it's added pressure in so many different areas where they see all these different things that they don't even process, because you swipe and in 0.5 seconds you have another reason that you're not good enough. And then you add in the sports side of it too. I mean, it's a highly competitive sports area, which a lot of them are involved in. And so I think it adds this pressure, kind of what you said, of like, how do I keep up? But they have all of these new and changing standards at their fingertips that they're taking in all the time. And the amount of time we spend on our phones is insane. Like, they're constantly like, oh yeah, I go home and I scroll on TikTok. And it's like, and I get it. We all scroll. So I think that's a huge one. And I would say the other struggle that I feel like I hear it all the time is students are busy. I think I remember being in high school, and I was talking to students about this. I don't know how I did everything that I did. I don't know how I did homework and sports and went to games and was in clubs and all of these pieces. But, I think something I hear a lot from students is, well, I'm too busy to read my Bible. I don't have time. I only have time to read it every other day. And I think they commit to so many things. Then you add in the pressure and the fact that they're not getting truth from where truth actually stems from, and that's God's word, and it leaves them exhausted and disheartened.
Yeah. So okay, so we kind of talked through what some of the challenges are. What's we're seeing. So as we kind of just turn towards how do we help them? How do we lead them? What does that look like? The research always shows certain things that those who are after their teenage years continue a thriving relationship with Christ. And we've boiled them down here at 121 as far as like they need to be known, shown, and then own their faith. And that known piece, I think, is really hard, especially for parents or for leaders, like to connect with a teenager. And so from a relationship standpoint, how can we press into them? What would you say to parents or to leaders on how to build relationships with teens? Because that's really the foundation in order to speak truth into them. We've got to have just that relationship.
Yeah, I think first thing parents should understand is that not all is lost. If God is in it, which He is, then we win. And it's not too late for their student to know Christ. It's, they don't need to be in peril if they feel like maybe it's not going the way that they imagined when they were first born. And God is in the midst of all of that. And we see time and time again, especially when you look in the Old Testament, the Israelites getting saved, and then they continually are just wandering away from God and continual disobedience. But we know this side of the cross that, as we pull that thread, we see Jesus redeeming all of that. And so I think it's a big encouragement I want to give to parents to know that Jesus can redeem any situation, no matter where they're at. And then for the parents that are, on the right track, they've got their kid going on, just cheer them on. And for all parents, get into their world as much as you can.
Yeah.
Not too close, because then they'll look at you and like, what are you doing? You're too old, you stop trying to be in my world. I want to have my own independence in this world. However, I think it's important for parents to sit next to them, and instead of maybe kicking them off of the PS5, join in and figure out, what is this game about? What is so fun about this? Teach me how to do this. Or if your student is interested in something that you're completely not interested in, it's okay. Join in on it and have them teach you and share in those moments. I think when you're bonding with them, that's a way for parents to really engage with their students, is just have a genuine desire to just want to be in their world. Now, that doesn't mean start dressing like them and all of these different things, because they will definitely let you know that's not cool.
Yeah.
But being in their world as much as you can and trying to understand them and not condemning them too much, and by saying, hey, when I was your age, I was doing this. When I was your age, I was doing that. And y'all's generation, that'll oftentimes can repel them away to not want to open up. And then just encourage them. It's a safe space for them to share whatever struggles or great things that have been going on, and just being able to be there for them to share it with them. And that, I think, are some of the two things that I would say.
That's awesome. So you mean like trying to talk like them? That's not like when I throw out the Sigma Alpha or anything like that. No, that's not a good way to connect relationships.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I just got ridiculed today. I guess there's a thing called 6'7". I don't even know how to describe that, but I said 6'7" today to a student, and he said, "You're too old to say that. Stop saying that." It's like, okay. At least I know what you guys are saying.
That's
now,
right. Yeah. I would have no clue what that is.
Yeah, it's just It's just a teen thing. I don't know how else to describe it.
And as parents, we'll never be able to keep up with that.
Exactly.
My kids are saying nonchalant all the time now. I'm like, what is that? Yeah. Like I understand what it means, but how are you using that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Lauren can tell us probably all of it.
Yeah, I bet.
Not all of it. I mean, I now am like, there's no moments where like I feel old, where I'm like, I don't know all of the lingo anymore. And they'll say things to me, or I'll like finally get it down, and then I'll say something, and they're like, "We don't say that anymore."
Yeah, exactly.
No one says that anymore, Lauren. So, I think just being present has been something I've learned with students. Whether it's parents or whether it's leaders, a student's gonna know if you're gonna show up. And for me, like I remember being in high school, like I I would have a greater chance of opening up and being honest with the ones that I knew were actually there versus the ones that were like, okay, got to check you off my list for my weekly check-in type thing. And I think being at FCA, one thing I've seen is students that they don't go here, but just us being present begin to open up.
Yeah.
You know, I grabbed coffee with a girl last week who comes to FCA, and I just simply got to know her because she is there every week, and I'm there every week, and she started opening up. Like, and so I think there is just really a power in being present, and kind of like Jermaine was saying, like getting into those spaces with them, asking them questions, and I think that there's a hard balance of how to give them space, but how to be in the midst of that, because you want them to have that independence where they know that they have the freedom, obviously like a safe type of independence and freedom to do things, but they also want to know that you're there and that you care, and that they're going to be met with compassion. I know obviously discipline is huge, and you have to have those pieces, but you know, I think sometimes students get freaked out of like, I don't want to tell my parent because they're going to be mad, and I'm like, they literally love you. They are your parent. They care about you. Like, I hear you. You're struggling with anxiety. They're not going to be mad at you for that. But I think an encouragement to parents is in those spaces when they're being raw and vulnerable, meeting them with compassion. Because I can't imagine, like, I mean, y'all are parents. Like, it must be hard when, you know, your kid's like, hey, I'm struggling with this. Or when you can see that they're struggling and they won't open up. But I think, you know, students want to know, okay, if I go tell my mom or my dad that I'm struggling with this, like, it's not going to be an immediate, well, don't do that. You should do this. But I think finding that balance, and every student's different, every parent-student dynamic's different, of how can you balance the compassion, empathy of like, I want to hear you and I just want to be present with you, while also being quick to speak truth into, hey, here's some lies I think you're believing. And let's tear those down and replace that with truth. I would say some of like that is kind of something I've seen as I just engage with students of and meeting them in those spaces where they are harder conversations.
And it's so hard as a parent because oftentimes when students in that world, they're kind of shut off a little bit. And so I think as parents, it's really easy for us to go, well, they don't want to talk to me about it. I'm just going to kind of back off. And I would just encourage parents not to force it, but just to continuously kind of, because they're going to talk about it when they're ready to talk about it. And it might be, it's usually at about 11 o'clock at night when I'm ready. I'm just like, I'm headed to bed. And
for sure.
Hey, I was like, oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. And so we've had to like, Kathy and I are both, we go to bed early, we get up early. And it's just been an adjustment to say, okay, no, if they want to talk, we're going to find those times and we're going to be there for them.
Yeah. And I think in those spaces, like, you know, even letting us know and their leaders know, like, how can we help? You know, it's so helpful when parents reach out and they're like, hey, I think my student's struggling. They won't talk to me, but can you talk to them? Yeah. And a lot of times it helps. Like, it's a space for us to realize, okay, there is a disconnect going on because we can't keep up with all of the ones that we have. We're thankful for every single one that shows up, but we don't know the ins and outs of every situation, every parent-student dynamic. And so I think, you know, even in, like, for parents, like, feel the absolute freedom to be like, hey, my kid's going through this right now. I just need some help. Can you talk to him about it? Like, I know that we are happy to do that. And that helps us learn how we can pray, how we can care for both the parent and the student, to encourage them in those spaces. Because it's cool once students get it and they're like, oh, my parent's not going to be mad at me. And sometimes they know how the conversation will go. They know that the parent's not going to be mad. They just forget to do it. That's another piece. I've had plenty of conversations with students where I'm like, how'd the conversation with your mom go? I forgot. And I'm like, okay, you gotta do it. You have to take some ownership in it. And so even just helping, like allowing us to help them in that space so they don't have to feel like they're alone with it. Because you're not. We're in the corner. We're in this corner.
Yeah, I think when there's a partnership there between parent and another mentor, whoever that is, whatever that looks like, oftentimes students will open up to someone else, and then they can just, and that person can maybe point them back to the parents, and there's just can be
Yeah.
a little more productive dialogue there. I think
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
great.
one thing that I've learned over the last several years being in the role is that our job is to be available for students, but not just students, for our youth leaders and also for parents. And we love it when parents want to give us little bits of information along the way. We know there's going to be some emergency situations that come up where it's like, I've tried everything and I'm just going to ask you, you know, for help. But being a part of it along the way is good. And then we, you know, we're not, I don't have any teenage kids yet. Lauren doesn't have any teenage kids yet. And while we don't have the experiences that maybe some parents do, we can play a role in that as well by connecting parents to others in the church who have navigated through that. And so we encourage parents to utilize us because we can help be connectors with them. And at the same time, we can also be coach,
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah.
I love that.
And
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry. I think one thing that was helpful in high school for me was, I felt like I had the freedom to whether it was, if I didn't feel like I could talk to my mom about it, I could talk to someone about it. And I think I always felt supported from my mom in that sense of like, hey, if you're just talking to someone, instead of just bottling it in. And I don't know if she ever explicitly said that of like, hey, just talk to someone about it. But I think even in the way that she interacted with me growing up, I never felt forced of like, I have to tell you every single bit and detail that's going on in my mind. But I think I just felt this like pull of like, I just need to talk to someone.
Yeah.
And I think because there were people around that were available and were present, it then led into those spaces where I was like, okay, I have people who I know I can talk to when I need it. But there is an ownership part also for the student to do that as well in that.
Yeah, I think so. What would y'all tell parents who their kids maybe haven't connected into the youth group, the student ministry, or whatever else? It's, hey, you know, my friends aren't there. I don't feel, you know, whatever that looks like. What advice do you give to parents to try and help their kids kind of connect in like that?
That is one thing that has been so difficult over
Yeah.
the years is, you know, we've got the students that, man, hey, you say jump, they're going to jump. You
Yep.
know, you say, you know, go this way, they'll go that way. And then there's others that are just, you know, hey, maybe they're trying to put their best foot forward and they're just not connecting, or maybe they're just in total fear, intimidated by, hey, this isn't my tribe, and so I don't even want to, you know, try. I think what I usually tell parents is, do they have any friends whatsoever, and if so, how can we partner with their parents in getting them either to church here at 121 or a different, you know, student ministry, or doing something that galvanizes their love for God. So it could be something like, hey, getting some of your friends to go paintballing or something, and you know, figuring out different ways where we can incorporate that and then point them to the church. It's really hard because you can't force relationships, but I think I also know that just because your student doesn't fit in the Sunday, Wednesday mold, there's still opportunities out there for them to get involved with friends who know God, and those friends hopefully will lead them to get into the youth ministry. So we tell students all the time, we know that maybe Sundays that doesn't necessarily work for you because maybe you have work, or maybe you've got some kind of sporting thing going on, but you can still have Bible studies. You can still have life groups in a home. You can still do certain things together. It just may not be, quote unquote, sanctioned by the church, but
Right.
those are still opportunities to meet and to get together and build relationships with each other. So
That's good.
You have any other thoughts?
I think it just takes time. I mean, I think if it's I came once and it wasn't for me, that's hard to base that off of.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of Wednesday nights for us, there are times where we have a certain amount of kids, and then the next week we have a totally different number of kids. You'll see some faces some Wednesday nights and some aren't there. And so I think it's hard to kind of be like a one and done, like, I tried it once. And I get it. It can be discouraging if you go and it wasn't just an immediate click. But I think encouraging your student, hey, can you give it 3 tries?
Yeah.
Like, can you just try 3 times? And if it doesn't work, then let's talk about something else.
Okay, we've bounced around the technology idea quite a bit. Anything y'all have seen or been helpful for parents to know about, like, how to lead your kids on the technology front?
Yeah, every student is different, so we have to know that they're all wonderfully made in the image of God, but we're all uniquely made in the image of God, and our behaviors are all different. I wish I could say that all 4 of my kids were the exact same, and I could put them all in the same discipleship belt and just say, rinse, repeat, and just send them down. But they're all just wired differently, and so I don't know if there's a magic formula for all of that, other than obviously continuing to impress God's word, like we read in I think it's Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 7 through 9, just teaching them constantly about God's word. But I think, generally speaking, the longer you can hold on to, them not engaging in the social media, if they're not just thirsting for it and they are thriving for it, why open up, that box if they're not necessarily, wanting to go into it? So I wouldn't say, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and ready for it. I think
right,
you bring up a good point, because I think
Yes.
the question I always get is what age? Like, what age? And so I think there's 2 dangers with
Yes.
that. It's different. Not until they're ready. And how do you
Yes.
know they're ready? Well, how are they handling the responsibilities they have?
Yes.
And then what does that look like? Like, we set a minimum age, and then depending on where they are, mature. And then the flip side of that too is, I think when parents ask that question, it's often like, okay, it's either on or it's like an on and off switch. Like,
Right.
okay, they're either on a phone, which gives them full access to everything, or there's nothing. And I think that's a really, really bad idea. Like, how do you know if they're ready for that unless you've maybe given them a phone and then just shut everything down except for text and phone?
Yeah.
How do they do with that? Okay, now they've shown responsibility there. Now maybe open up internet.
Yep.
Okay, they doing okay there. You're checking it, looking like we're doing good. Okay, now at a certain age, when they can handle seeing their friends out doing something without them, and they've got the emotional maturity to handle that, then we kind of open that up.
Absolutely.
I think, gosh, I just see so many parents doing that, and it feels like. Tell me if y'all agree with this. At middle school, there's a lot of parents who they hold the reins really tight, and then middle school, it's just like, let go. It's like, okay, now we've arrived, and they just like release all these freedoms all at once. And then I see parents all the time trying to grab those reins back. And that is the hardest thing in the world. Once you've kind of given those freedoms, to then take them back,
Right.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's for parents just being very clear and upfront about responsibilities, expectations. I think it's important to get out in front as much as you can, educate yourself as much as you can. We've got 4 kids, so when I say things like that, I know that it's hard because we're busy. We're busy as adults, and we've got a lot of different things going on. So it's hard to sit down and research certain things, especially when they're chomping at the bit to get something, and you just want us to say, oh, okay, just go ahead, leave me alone. I think it's important, to make sure that you're thinking through those things, praying through it, seeking wise counsel, and then setting the expectations with your student. Hey, we're going to let you do this because we hear what you're saying, but we want to be clear that if we see this sort of behavior as a result of it, do you agree that this is what we're going to do? And, so there's this sort of, okay, hey, you've been on it for 7 hours today, and you told us that you didn't need a minutes restriction. Well, clearly you do, and so we're going to go ahead and put a restriction on your phone until you can show that it's not controlling, your world. And so also we, as parents, and I don't want to sound too soft when I say this, but needs to be a lot of grace with students, because I know for myself, I spend a lot of time on my phone, and I think that's the other thing that students will see
Yeah.
is, well, you're on your phone, so we want to be careful on how we're modeling things, because they say more is caught than taught, right? And so we want to be careful in how we're modeling that to our own students, and how we're handling things on our own. We don't want to be the do as I say, not as I do type of parent, to help them, navigate through all of those different things. But I think, to your point, you're right. Like when they are ready, and we don't just completely just let them just go all in. As you were talking, I was thinking about, I don't think that I'm ready to let James drive a car yet.
Right. Yeah.
Right. He's not ready. He might want to.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ready. And when I do think that he's ready, I don't think I'm just going to say, here are the keys. Good luck, drive, have at it, go all over the place.
Yeah, there's a process.
Yeah, there's a process.
There's a learning program. You drive with a parent, and then you know what? You don't do highways until, so then even when you get your license, hey, I want you in a 2-mile radius. And then, okay, you're doing well with that. Now we can extend that. And okay, now we can add highways. Now we can add, yeah. It's a good point.
So
that's
good.
I
think for me, I think I got social media my senior year of high school. Well, I got Instagram my senior year of high school.
Yeah.
And it was after begging and pleading, because that's how everyone was finding their roommates for college. So there was also like a different purpose where it wasn't just I wanted it. And I remember I would get really annoyed in high school of like, why can't I have Instagram? And I'm honestly really glad that I didn't. I forget half the time that I didn't. Shocker that you can, when you grow up, you'll forget.
Yeah.
It wasn't that big of a deal.
So traumatic at the time, but then
Truly. And I remember, like, I had Snapchat growing up because that was, like, the way me and my friends communicated all the time. But I also remember it wasn't just an easy, like, here, you can get it. I mean, my mom really thought through it, and I think she even talked to my dad about it. But, it wasn't just, like, I've always been on social media. And, I think even being 23, social media is super addicting. I mean, it is so easy to sit there and just scroll and scroll and scroll. And I remember during COVID, like, I would spend so much time on my phone. And so to expect middle school and high school students to have that type of self-control when, like, to be honest with you, like, I think, like, me as an adult, I'll speak for myself, like, there are times where I have to be like, I have to put my phone down. Like, I've got to stop watching reels. Like, I have to clean the house.
Yeah.
Like, enough with the funny, like, videos. And so, I think there is a maturity level there, and the content that your child's going to see.
Yeah.
I mean, there's things that I'm like, I don't want to see that. Like, and I didn't even look for it. Like,
oh, yeah.
The algorithm.
Yeah, the algorithm, it just shows it to you. And
Yep.
so, I think just allowing kids to be kids, I think one thing, I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but even, like, I've seen middle school girls who wear more makeup than I do now or did in middle school.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you expect when that's what they're seeing on social media all the time? I remember there was, like, outrage. I use the word outrage very lightly. But, like, people were talking about how middle schoolers were getting very expensive skincare brands at Sephora.
Oh, skincare.
That, I don't even think I used more than maybe a face wash and moisturizer in middle school. Like, that was it. And, but it's so easy to get these ideas, and they grow up so fast, right? They're seeing relationships. I need to be dating because that's all I see on my Instagram feed. You're 13 years old. Like, you can't even drive. Like, and so, I think that maturity piece is so big in the sense that they're being fed a lot of mature content.
Yeah.
That then is creating this standard for them internally to meet that a middle schooler or even a high schooler shouldn't have to meet at that age.
I think when we talk about, especially living against the grain, I mean, that's probably the biggest area.
Oh, yeah.
If a high schooler today waits till their senior year to get some of those social media apps, then, I mean, that's definitely countercultural. And that's hard for parents. I think, I'm sure there's a lot of parents listening that are either feeling a lot of guilt right now, like, oh my goodness, I didn't do that. Or like, that's an impossible standard or whatever else. And so I think it's helpful to just help parents go, okay, well, first of all, if we want to lead our kids to, like, there's going to be some areas where we have to live against the grain a little bit, and we have to kind of go, and I think that starts probably early on when we're talking to our kids about our family's different. Like I know all your, a lot of your friends have this, but our family's different.
Yeah.
And then I would say for each parent, you've got to just stand before the Lord and go with this kid, with their responsibility, but where should they be? And then not to feel guilty about it, not to compare to other families or parents. Go, oh, I messed up because this or that. This is, God has given you this kid, and you know them better than anybody else, and you set those boundaries. And you know what? Don't let culture tell you what to do. Don't let other parents tell you what to do. Like, what's best for you. And now, where it's beautiful is when there's other parents in a social circle with kids that kind of agree, hey, let's all not do this particular social media or whatever it is, and then there's not quite as much peer pressure.
Yeah.
But it is tough. I mean, the pressure on for like because it starts getting into friendships. Like, if they don't have these social media apps, then all of a sudden their social world is they're left out.
They feel left out, as we should say.
Well, and I remember, even in college, like, getting rid of Snapchat. Like, I had friends that were like, well, I'm only going to communicate on Snapchat. And I'm like, okay, if that's the only way that you're going to talk to me and we're friends, are we really friends?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like, and so I think that I remember it was hard, like, not because my friends all had social media. I mean, I feel like I can very vividly, like, I remember the first thing I ever posted on Instagram. It's still probably on my page, or it's archived. But like, I remember that, like, angst of, like, I finally have this. But I look back and I'm like, praise God that, like, that it wasn't just an immediate, no, I'm ready for this. No, I'm ready for this. Because even my senior year, like, it was still something it's so hard to navigate. Even as an adult, social media can be hard to navigate. And so I don't think there's any guilt or issue. I think it really is a maturity thing of, like, can your student handle the content that they're going to see? And kind of like you said, if they realize they're left out, like, because I remember seeing that. Like, I remember seeing on social media my friends hanging out without me. And I was like, wow, this is a gut punch. Like, this stinks. So my mom started exposing me to serving opportunities at a pretty young age. And so, I mean, I don't know if we, like, officially served once a year or not, or what that looked like, but there were serving opportunities that I was just kind of used to. So, I mean, in elementary school, we would go help out a crisis center, which they would take in women and children who were in domestic violence relationships. And so that's a pretty big thing for an elementary school, like, age child to be around. But I was playing with kids who were in totally different situations than I was. And then with churches, and even at the school, I went to a private Christian school. At the school that I went to, there were mission trip opportunities. And so the older that I got, it became a natural rhythm of, I'm going to go on a mission trip. I'm going to serve. And it started stateside. So then by the time the summer I graduated high school, I went on my first international trip. And I would say that it translated into college. So then my freshman year of college, I'm like, well, what mission trip am I going to go on? My sophomore year of college, that was COVID, so I didn't go on one. But, like, okay, this opportunity's back again. I'm going to go my junior year and my senior year. And even now, being 23, like, missions is still a huge, like, piece of my heart. And I think, I kind of talked to my mom a little bit about it, just as I was processing through it, of getting her perspective on, like, how did you let me just, like, go on mission trips with, like, my school and stuff, and, like, freshman through senior year and things like that. And I think that kind of, I'd said maybe a little bit earlier, that there's kind of like a safety net type freedom where, like, it was a really safe space to step out into these things. To have those opportunities in high school really laid a foundation as I got older.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of comes back to the, when we look at the framework of students need to be known, shown, modeled, and then own their faith. Yeah. And I think we got to look for those opportunities to hand off the faith to them, and serving opportunities, I think, are the best way to do that.
Yeah.
Where they're stepping out and they're having to do that. But with each of our kids, Kathy has served in one of the elementary school ages, and she's taught other kids with them, and then she's given them the opportunity.
Yeah.
And there is something with each of them I've seen flip, a kind of a switch flip, when they're now having to talk about their faith
Yeah.
for these kids, and now it's not their parents' faith, it's their faith,
Yeah.
right? So mission trips or opportunities to serve in teaching others, or just opportunities to serve in various areas, to just kind of take ownership of their faith.
Yeah.
I think that's huge.
And I loved doing it with my mom whenever I was younger. And then kind of like how you had said it, I then felt like I was almost pushed in the space of, okay, now you go do it.
Right.
And
I can
it
do
was
this.
a safe space. I mean,
Yeah.
I was with other high schoolers. I was with staff from our school, and so it was a safe environment. And I mean, I don't have children of my own, but it's like there is a level of trust that a parent has to have to send their child to go do that.
Yeah.
But I think it was so helpful in my mom trusting me and trusting those that were leading me in those spaces, because I had my own freedom to grow my faith and to serve and build these blocks by myself. So I kind of had these rhythms of independence before I was completely out of the house and totally by myself. And so I think that would be something. I think our church is so servant-hearted, and I think just praying through as a parent, like how can I create this rhythm for my kids so that when they're met with these mission trip opportunities that we have for the summer, I feel confident that like they can go and they've got it, like that they're good to go.
It's just what we do.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I just want to add, for parents, the more that you show
Yes.
Yeah.
your student your zeal for the Lord in all aspects of your life, not just in church, but at the dinner table. Just like, again, Deuteronomy 6, at the dinner table, in the car, when you're engaging with other people at a restaurant, when you're eating, praying in different areas, in all areas. When you show that to your student, what I've seen, to answer your question, most of the students where parents are doing that, we see their students also thriving because now they go to that ownership piece because they've been shown it in all aspects.
Yeah.
And so coming to church on Sundays is a joy, right? It's something that we get to do. It's a privilege. And we talk about how great it was. We also can be real with each other and say, hey, this is where my heart was in this.
Yeah.
And then if in a sporting event, we're talking about God in the midst of that. We are interacting with other adults in a manner that reflects Christ, so that our students can see that this is what it looks like to live outside of the church for Jesus. And I think students who have parents that do that, they tend to do the same thing. And I want to say, as an encouragement to parents, no matter where you're at spiritually, you can start today.
Yeah.
You can literally start today. And your student may wonder, what's going on? Why are you at the table now with your Bible open in the mornings or in the evenings? And you can tell them, I realize that I want to live for Jesus and do it in all aspects of my life, not just for a couple hours on a Sunday. Right. And so... and they start to see that. Maybe at the beginning they will start to see you as being like, what's going on with that person? Is dad having a midlife crisis or something?
Right.
It's like, no, I'm not. God has really impacted me, and I want to, live for him. I want you to come with me. I'm going to go on this mission trip, and I want you to go with me. I'm going to go serve, and I want you to, go with me. It'll be great. And we have those experiences where we show them those pieces of it. And I just think it's important in all aspects of our life, not just on a Sunday.
I think you're so right, because they can spot inauthenticity a mile away.
Oh, yeah.
And if it's just a show on Sunday morning because you want your kid to have good morals and you're not modeling at home, guess what? As soon as they're out of the house, they're going to be doing the same thing.
Yeah. My Megan, she's been a believer for a long time. I was relatively new to the faith when we first, got married, and it was just super awkward for me to pray out loud and at the dinner table with my wife. I knew I had to do it. But as we've gone on and gotten older and have had kids, I think there's a humility side that we can't be afraid to show our kids, the students. And we don't have to be this perfect person because we can't, number one, and number two, Jesus is, right? And so being humble and showing them, hey, you know what? I probably said some things today at that soccer game that I should not have said. And I was not a good role model for you today, but thank God we've got someone who is, right? And leading them to see it's okay that you can admit to being wrong. And as a parent, we don't have to always say, I'm right in everything that I do.
And you can admit to not knowing everything.
Yes,
and not to be afraid of what you know or don't know as you press into those conversations. They're not going to remember a lot of what you said, but they're going to remember that it was important enough for you to say it. You know, and so I think just that constant pressing in, they're going to pick up what's important to you. If it's not important to you, it's not going to be important to them.
And how great it is if your student is asking you questions about things that you don't know. That's a wonderful opportunity to explore together.
For sure.
And again, reaching out to people like me and Lauren and yourself, we can connect different ways that we can be connectors for you to grow and your questions, and especially for your teenagers.
Love that. Okay, as we wrap up, any last things you think that parent really, we didn't cover this and parent really needs to hear this? Or leader or anybody who's working with students?
It's a long game, right? Raising teenagers is not easy, but I always go back to myself and my relationship with the Lord. I'm sure the Lord is looking at me sometimes like, what are you doing, Jermaine? Like, you know better, right? Especially as I read through the Israelites in the Old Testament. I know I keep going back to Exodus and parts of where they were set free, but he just constantly says, hey, if you just do as I say, you will receive the blessings. And they say, yes, I will do as you say. We will do as you say. And they say, we would be better off back in slavery. We could eat better when we were with the Egyptians. And they constantly rebel. And God continuously shows grace to them. And I tell our leaders all the time, I know sometimes that students you can just be like that. What are you doing? You know better.
Yeah.
But then when you look back on your own life, you realize, okay, I'm sure God is saying that about me. And how does he treat me? Oh, he has got unending grace, right? And then the Lord promises that he will further that grace to generation, thousands of generations, he says. And so, like I said it before earlier, Jesus can redeem any situation. So if you're a parent listening to this right now and you feel that you're just in a hot mess, the good news is that Jesus can redeem any situation, and be reminded of how God treats you in the midst of your struggles as you help your student through their struggles.
That's great. Fantastic. Well, I love it. This has been fantastic conversation. So I just want to encourage anybody who's listening to this podcast that we're available to talk. Yeah. And so we would love to talk more about your student, what that looks like, how to lead them in this space. I think some of the things, as we navigated this conversation, just that idea of, okay, they need to be known. So how are we doing relationally there? They need to be shown. Are we modeling the faith for them? And then they need to own it. And so how are we passing on ownership to them? That's been always helpful for me as we've navigated these waters. But if we do that as parents, it is my encouragement that is how we will help our kids to live against the grain. Thanks, y'all.